Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. My name is Diana Skaya. According to an unnamed Ukrainian official, the United States and Ukraine have reached an agreement on a framework for a deal regarding natural resources. Now, the source stated that the terms were finalized after Ukraine managed to purge several points that it considered unacceptable. Now, the unnamed Ukrainian official revealed that Ukraine is prepared to sign a deal granting U.S. access to rare minerals. In exchange, the United States would contribute to a reconstruction fund for Ukraine. Now, although Ukraine pushed for the inclusion of security guarantees in the agreement, U.S. officials rejected the proposal. A previous draft, which included a demand from President Trump for a $500 billion share of Ukraine's rare earths and other minerals, it was rejected by Zelensky. Sources in Kyiv suggest he could not accept that version because it lacked U.S. commitments and instead placed the burden on Ukraine to, quote, provide everything. The news of the deal broke just 2 days before Volodymyr Zelensky's scheduled visit to Washington, D.C.
I hear that he's coming on Friday. Certainly it's okay with me if he'd like to, and he would like to sign it together with me, and I understand that's a big deal, very big deal. And I think the American people, even if you look at polling, they're very happy because, you know, Biden was throwing money around like it's cotton candy. And it's a very big deal. Look, it could be $1 trillion deal, it could be whatever, but it's rare earths and other things. We've pretty much negotiated our deal on raw earth and various other things. We'll be looking at that security. You're talking about general security for Ukraine later on. I don't think that's going to be a problem. There are a lot of people that want to do it. And I spoke with Russia about it. They didn't seem to have a problem with it.
Polish Premier Donald Tusk took to his platform X to write, "If we're united and in solidarity, we'll find a good way to end this war." Now, this he wrote in a video message which was published on the platform, and his statement comes ahead of a video conference with 27 EU presidents and heads of government, as well as European Council President António Costa, in attendance.
A video conference involving 27 EU heads of government and presidents will soon begin. European Council President António Costa, who organized the event, will also be in attendance, as well as French President Emmanuel Macron, who will share the details of his visit to Washington and his talks with President Trump. As you know, this is part of the preparation for negotiations. We all hope that the war in Ukraine will end very soon. Europe wants to have a unified stance on this matter. Poland's stance has been clear since the beginning. There can be no decision made on the future of Ukraine without Ukraine. We cannot agree to Ukraine's capitulation in the face of Russia's outrageous demands, including territorial demands. Europe must be united in its vision of Ukraine's future and its relations with Ukraine and Russia. We implemented sanctions. We will discuss ways to support Ukraine during these negotiations, including what people are most excited about. This is how to help Ukraine maintain peace if we sign it, and who will send troops. Poland's stance is clear in this matter as well. Polish soldiers will not directly participate in the peacekeeping mission or in whatever we call this mission, but Poland will be ready to provide any necessary help in the logistics of this mission, which we are already doing, but on a large scale, if there is such a need, so that the European peacekeeping mission supported by the United States is effective and well organized. We are also ready to support all initiatives, including the use of Russian money, so-called Russian frozen assets, to fund Ukraine aid both now when it is still fighting and when the war is over during its reconstruction. This will be yet another meeting. There is lots of work ahead of us, but there is a little bit of hope on the horizon that if we are united and in solidarity, we'll find a good way to end this war.
Russian forces launched attacks on the cities of Kharkiv and Kyiv on Tuesday night. Now, the strikes resulted in 1 person dead and 2 injured in Kharkiv, as well as 2 dead and 2 wounded in Kyiv.
3 hits were reported in Kharkiv, causing damage to high-rise buildings. According to Kharkiv's mayor, 4 Shahed drones hit the city, striking a central road, an apartment building, and 2 cafes. At the same time, Russians attacked Bucha on the outskirts of Kyiv. 1 person died and 2 others were injured in the strike, while several residential buildings in the vicinity caught fire.
Krzysztof Gawkowski, the Polish Minister of Digital Affairs, has stated that Poland will continue to support Starlink satellite communications in war-torn Ukraine.
According to Gawkowski, it is Poland that currently supports internet access in Ukraine, ensuring security by paying the subscription fees. The minister announced that, quote, Poland has ordered another 5,000 Starlink terminals, which are already partially paid for and will be sent to Kyiv in the coming weeks and months. He also stressed that because Starlink provides internet and security in both civilian and military spheres, the front holds. Referring to the words of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who said a few days ago that the U.S. has not dropped any hints about Starlink terminals in Ukraine potentially being shut down, but Ukraine should be prepared for such a scenario, Gawkowski said he cannot imagine any American corporation violating such agreements.
Following his conversation with the UN Secretary General in the United States, Polish Minister of Foreign Affairs Radosław Sikorski continues his world tour. Now, Sikorski will begin his official visit to Japan on Wednesday, where he will stay until March 3rd.
The foreign ministers of Poland and Japan will discuss economic and technological cooperation between the two countries. Additionally, Sikorski and Owaya are expected to talk about opening the Japanese market for Polish produce. Following Sikorski's meetings, officials of both countries are expected to sign another agreement on a strategic partnership. The deal is said to include matters of politics, economy, defense, science, and culture, and will be valid until 2029. Another important goal of Minister Sikorski's visit to Tokyo is to discuss global geopolitics, mainly the security situation in Europe and Asia-Pacific.
The head of EU diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, is visiting the United States, where she will meet with the U.S. Secretary of State to discuss efforts to end the Russia-Ukraine war. But before heading to Washington, D.C., Kallas stressed that no agreement regarding Ukraine or Europe can take place without their participation and consent.
Kallas plans to discuss peace in Ukraine with Marco Rubio and other U.S. officials. Her agenda also includes a visit to the Hudson Institute, where she will join a discussion on the war in Ukraine, EU-US relations, and the future of NATO. Ahead of her trip, however, Kallas commented on Donald Trump's recent statements calling Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. While still in Brussels, the head of the European Union's diplomacy noted that unlike Ukraine, Russia has not had fair elections in 25 years. Kallas also said that the Russian narrative is very strongly represented in statements coming out of the White House.
Ahead of his trip to Washington, D.C., British Prime Minister Keir Starmer announced that the UK will raise defense spending to 2.5% of its GDP, the largest increase since the end of the Cold War. Starmer is to host a number of world leaders over the weekend to discuss recent changes in American policies toward Europe and the war in Ukraine.
We will keep our manifesto commitment to spend 2.5% of our GDP on defence. But in light of the grave threats that we face, we will bring forward that target so we meet it in 2027. That is an increase of £13.4 billion year on year compared to where we are today. I have spoken to President Zelensky a number of times. I spoke to him on Wednesday night as the democratic elected leader in Ukraine. I spoke to him again on Saturday. I have spoken to President Macron this afternoon on his return to France, and I am hosting a number of countries at the weekend for us to continue to discuss how we go forward together as allies in light of the situation that we face.
EU enlargement is the best response to Russian hybrid threats. Polish Minister for the European Union, Adam Szłapka, said at a press conference following the General Affairs Council in Brussels on Tuesday, adding that Poland is ready to lead the process during his ongoing presidency of the EU Council.
Every single day we see how that this war is not only on the front line in Ukraine, but it's also hybrid threats, act of sabotage, so he's doing that. And I think the best response for that is to move forward with the enlargement process, and Polish presidency is determined to work on this strategic issue, and during Polish presidency we would like to speed up this process. Of course, many things depends of the Commission work, but we are also working among member states to move forward this process. And I think that the best response for that is enlargement.
Tensions are on the rise in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Supporters of Bosnian Serb leader Milorad Dodik have rallied ahead of a court hearing set for Wednesday in a case against the pro-Russian on charges that he disobeyed the international envoy overseeing peace in the Balkan country. Now, the rally, attended by hundreds of people, took place outside the National Assembly of Republika Srpska on Tuesday evening. Dodik was indicted in 2023 for signing laws that suspended rulings by the Constitutional Court and by international peace envoy Christian Schmidt. If found guilty, he could be banned from politics or even face a prison sentence of 6 months to 5 years. Dodik rejects the indictment and has said he will not be present in court in Sarajevo on Wednesday. Now, at the rally, the Bosnian Serb leader addressed his supporters, saying he was engaged in a battle for their rights. And that's all for this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Stay tuned for more news and features.